How's it going out there, YouTube? My name is Jesse, and I am the curator for the Golden Age, and this is another...
Lost Heroes of the Golden Age.
Yes, this is Lost Heroes of the Golden Age, and this time we're doing...
You've been gone for a while.
Yeah, I had a lot of things changing at one time, and I needed to take a bit of a hiatus so I could organize everything. But I think I've got things on a pretty good even keel now, where I can start going back to doing this. I just had to take a break for a little while. Anyways, we are starting me coming back with a re-review.
Been a while since you've done one of those.
A couple of years ago, before I started doing this format that we're on now, I did one on Airman.
Anything like airmail?
No. Airman's not anything like airmail, but he is a flying superhero.
A lot of those in the Golden Age.
Yeah, flying superheroes seem to be more of a common thing in the Golden Age. A lot of heroes can fly. Well, there seem to be a lot of flying superheroes and a lot of non-powered superheroes. The Golden Age. Anyways, we are doing a re-review. This is one that's going to be Airman. I covered him as best I could because when I did this, I didn't have access to the source materials. So I basically did a review on the research that I could find at the time. I did have access to the source material and I read all of his issues. There's just a few of them. So I did a little more comprehensive than I did the very first time that I reviewed him. Went over a couple of things that I didn't really know before, and I was able to cover the first issue. There's something that I harp on a little bit as we get to the end of the first issue, but I think if you listen to what I'm talking about, it actually makes a lot of sense, what I'm saying. And yeah, I know, I tend to harp on things in the Golden Age that by today's standards wouldn't be acceptable. But in this case, I think I make an actual really good point. So, don't dwell on that point too much, but I do think I make a very good point. Anyways, like I said, we are doing a re-review, and I stated something that I found rather interesting about this. He was a brand new superhero, and even though he came at the tail end of the comic book that was ending, he got the cover appearances, which was rather unusual for a new hero. I mean, a lot of heroes would eventually get the cover, but not on their first appearance. There are many people that I've introduced where you see the cover art of their first appearance and you're just like, how would I even know that he was in there? Well, you know that he's in there because I'm introducing him. I'm telling you about it. Anyways, he does appear on the cover, which was rather interesting because more prominent characters only got mentioned on the cover. So, let's go ahead and go over Airman, and you can see why, well, he was short term, but I don't think it was for a lack of character development or interests. It's just the comic books that he was in didn't last for very long. And Centaur this is a Centaur, they had kind of a sketchy history when it comes to their heroes in the first place. If you saw me do the review on the shark, then you can understand that one completely. So let's go ahead and cover Airman on this Lost Heroes of the Golden Age. Airman, Drake Stevens, first appeared in Keen Detective Comics number 23 in 1940. The original publisher is Centaur, and he was created by George Kaplan and Harry Shale. Now, what I actually think is interesting about him being created by Kaplan and Shale in 1940, these two are also the creators of the Black Widow in Timely Comics in 1940. Not the Black Widow from Marvel proper. And I actually covered the Black Widow in the Women of Timely comic books. If you want to go back and watch that video, I covered a number of females. So I think it was interesting that Kaplan and Shale were not only working with Centaur, they were also working with Timely. Now, Airman's origin story is not super original or overly compelling. His parent got killed, and he went to avenge the murder. That's pretty standard for an origin story in 1940s. Although the idea of Airman is visually appealing, he's not the only character to be one with wings. Fox Publication came out with Birdman, which I have not done, and Timely did Red Raven, which I have done, but all three of them were preceded by Hawkman by DC Comic Books in 1939, which is one that I want to do in the future. So I think it's interesting. He has an interesting idea. He was a superhero, but he worked on the sea and took down people that from the air that were involved with sea stuff, basically boats, submarine once, which is kind of interesting because we have plenty of seafaring heroes. He was still defending the seas, but from the air. Now, in the second issue, he does get himself a jetpack, and they'd say by issue 4, I think they said he's flying 400 miles an hour. And they mentioned in the second issue that he has a jetpack, which allows him to be on land and sea. So, of course, that means he's going to be in the sea. Now, in the second issue, he does have a bit of time underwater with an air mask that he says he creates. And in the third issue, he does go into water, but it's only for one panel and to dodge bullets. So he quickly goes into the water, but it doesn't become a part of him. His wings are lighter than air, and he carries around gas canisters. He is not above killing his enemies, which in the 1940s, it doesn't seem to be as uncommon as I thought it might be. But he appears at the end of the King Detective stories, which was 23 and 24, and he is the cover of 3 of the 4 issues that he appears in, which is unusual because he was brand newly introduced. I mean, you had characters like the Eye that were appearing with him and Mass Marvel who weren't on the cover. I mean, you would think that either one of them would have taken the cover. In fact, on his first appearance in Detective Eye, the Eye is actually the cover, the featured cover and the featured story. Actually, he had a number of stories in that one. Anyways, so I find it weird that a relatively unknown superhero with only 4 with only 4 appearances would take the cover of 3 cover stories of 3 of his 4 appearances with the cover feature, a feature cover and featured story. So let's go ahead and cover Airman. We'll cover the first appearance so you can see basically what he was and what they were going for. So jetpack, air mask to be able to breathe underwater, explosive eggs, bombshells, things, whatever. He's also kind of smart because in the first issue, you'll see. So let's go ahead and cover the Airman, and hopefully we've covered all the stuff that I didn't get to cover the first time that I reviewed him. Oh, does not go after any Nazis or fifth columnists that I am able to figure out in any way. So let's do this. I just want to go over this cover here real quick. The Mass Marvel King Detectives number 23 funny. I find it kind of humorous that Airman has taken the cover of this. I mean, if it was a very first comic and nobody had been established, I could see Airman taking the cover, but the Eye is probably the most popular character. I mean, Dan Denton too. I'm surprised either one of them doesn't take the cover over Airman, because Airman, it even says introducing a brand new character, Airman. A brand new character taking the very first cover appearance is not a super common thing. They might take the second appearance, but to take the cover feature on their very first appearance, we've done a lot of them. There are many, many heroes in the Golden Age who don't even make the comic book front, let alone taking the cover and the featured story on their very first appearance. So I find that just a little unusual. But since this is only 9 pages, I included the cover to take up 10. And I wanted to show you something that I found interesting. Now, I have no idea why this first page for the introduction is in black and white. I have searched. I cannot find a color of this page. In fact, a lot of other comic book sites, and I don't visit just this one that I use a lot. I visited a number of other sites, and they don't have any keen detective funnies or keen detective stories at all. Now, his last 2 appearances in Detective Eye, I've actually found those, but I have not found keen detective funnies on any other site, which it's Centaur. I mean, their numberings were really strange, confusing, and sometimes didn't make a hell of a lot of sense. But not being able to find this on other comic book sites was actually kind of weird. Okay. Introduction, Airman. George Kaplan and Harry Shale. We talked about that in the opener. Another ship explodes at sea in the same manner that the famous ornithologist Professor Claude Stevens met his untimely death. His son Drake has dedicated his entire life to the capture of his father's murderers. Fitted with lighter than air gas-filled wings of the fame, this makes it really hard to read, albatross, good luck omen of every sailor, Drake as the airman brings the power of mythology, the wonders of science, and the might of his body to wreak vengeance on the powers of evil at sea. Ornithologist to study birds. I think I'm saying that right. Let me check real quick. Yeah, I was pronouncing it correctly. This should do the trick. Making his own concentrated, highly explosive bombs, the airman prepares for his war on sea piracy. This racket's a cinch. If we keep it up, we'll all be retiring soon. Meanwhile. Okay. And you see, now we're back in color. Okay. A few miles of fight brings the airman over Cleagues. I'm going to go with Cleagues. Look, an albatross. That means good luck. Greetings. What the? The airman makes his appearance. I know that his arms are on the wings, but they never show his arms attached to the wings. I mean, he would have to be some control, but you see when he's standing there, the wings retract backwards and his arms are free, and we never see him attached to the wings. And if they're lighter than air, he needs to be attached to them in some way. And apart from the characters who have wings as part of their outfit, what kind of gas is he using that allows him to fly? Because I understand helium is lighter than air, but I don't think that the helium-filled wings are going to be strong enough to be able to fly him for miles. So I would really like to know what is in those wings. Okay, so he confronts the sailors and he wants to know where the captain is. And, they're remarkably calm for the fact that a guy with wings just flew onto their ship. And, he's like, we don't like any snoopers. You don't like snoopers, huh? So he's fighting them, and the captain does come out and pulls a gun on him, and he takes off with one of the sailors. I can't make this up. Okay, so they want to shoot him with the anti-aircraft guns. I honestly didn't think that they had guns of that size in the 40s. I mean, I have seen the big, gigantic guns, but this is an anti-aircraft gun. But honestly, how much accuracy do you think you're going to get out of something like that? These are mostly stationary guns, and that's a moving target. Anyways, now the deadly gun spits round after round of shell at the airman. That's an impressively accurate aiming, considering that you have a stationary gun. Anyways, I mean, it looks like it's on somewhat of a turret, but you're not going to get that much of a diversity of where it's hitting. Okay, so he throws the guy in bullseyes. Quick, release the gas bombs. He throws the guy into the other seaman, knocking him down. Ha, the poison gas will get rid of him. And that is actually a really well-drawn scene, considering that the rest of this seems a little cartoony in some way. I mean, him breathing in the air, the wings, it's just a good drawn thing with him, sucking in the poisonous gas. Okay, so he goes back to his stronghold, can't hold out much longer. The airman violently fights off suffocation as he flies to his cliffside home, but apparently had enough air left in his lungs to be able to create an antidote. In the laboratory, he quickly makes a life-giving potion, so we see that he's incredibly smart. And he says that will neutralize the poison gas. That'll give these sea pirates a dose of medicine. So he flies back out, and his strength revived. Airman goes into pursuit of Klieg when he sees a torpedo heading towards the ship, and he's able to stop the torpedo by throwing one of these little egg bombs. I don't really have a better way to describe it. They look like egg bombs. Okay, so he stops the torpedo, and he lands onto the ship, apparently so quietly that he's got big flapping wings. He lands so quietly that he lands near an unsuspecting seaman. I'm not going to comment by the amount of jokes I can make out of that one little sentence right there. A little persuasion loosens the sailor's tongue. Where does the captain? Answer me, or... He twisted his arm behind him. Out, stop, he's in the control room. And he also seems to have a vial of sleeping gas. That's what he uses. Now, I'm a little confused by here. Swinging at the end of the rope, the airman crashes through the door. You have wings! You could have flown into that door with a greater amount of speed by catching some air and flying it to an angle than you could with the rope, but we're just going to let that go. He asks how he escaped the gas inside the control room. Here's another little trick of mine. The airman makes a surprise jump. How did you jump in a control room? I've seen the control rooms of ships. There's not enough room for you to jump. Okay, so he jumps on the guy, and he's holding him down. He wants him to talk, and they're able to tie him up. He looks like he's struggling with the rope. So several ropes are draped over Airman. Let's see you fight now, smart guy. You're going to see it. And since he's tied up, before I die, tell me your racket. Why not? And here we get the exposition. Why not? You can't talk from the bottom of the sea. I buy old ships and place heavy insurance on them. Later, they're blown up by my radio-controlled torpedoes. We bribe the insurance inspector and make everything easier. Simple, isn't it? That's not simple at all. It sounds really convoluted. And so many things could go wrong with something like that. There's a lot simpler ways to make money. I mean, in the fourth appearance, they're flying narcotics off of a ship. The way that they did that with the plane and the ship, that was actually simpler than what you're doing here. This is so convoluted with so many different ways that something can go wrong. Captain, the steamer rental has been located. It's 20 miles away. Good. One more job and we're finished. Get the torpedo ready. So as they aren't watching Airman anymore, he attempts to get out of this rope, and he has a diamond ring, which was never referenced before, and after the scene will never be referenced again, to cut the ropes. And I don't really think that that's going to work that way. Okay, you're seeing the same scene that I am, and correct me if I'm wrong, but is a diamond ring really going to be strong enough that you can use it to cut through the ropes in a matter of seconds? Because that's what it looks like. It doesn't look like he's taking minutes. I just don't see a diamond ring cutting through rope like this. Let me check something. I couldn't find an answer. I was satisfied about this, and I'm thinking maybe eventually he cut through the rope, but he's not doing it that fast. As soon as his hands are freed, he silently works over his other bonds. Here goes another ship, you said it. And then he gets loose and he destroys the radio. He's loose! You guessed it! Okay. So he pulls off a pirate cutlass and he slices at him and he flies backwards, which makes the next panel even more confusing. Here goes the last of ya. The cutlass only grazed Airman's chin. If he only grazed your chin, why did you go flying backwards? You didn't just fall down. You flew backwards. It grazed your chin. You're on the ground. Good. Hurting two birds with one kick. So he kicks the pirate, and I have to admit, until this scene, he lashes out with his clawed feet. I will admit I did not realize he had clawed feet. But, yeah, from the beginning, they showed him having clawed feet, and I completely missed that. I will admit that. Okay. So he knocks the pirates down and he leaves the cabin. You see how small that thing is? How did he leap in the air? Okay. With this stuff in the ship's fuel, she'll go nowhere. Into each lifeboat, he pours the powerful acid. Oh, it cuts through the lifeboats, I see. Your fuel and lifeboats are useless. You will drift helplessly until you submit to the authorities. Then leaves the helpless ship. For several hours, Airman soars over the disabled vehicle. Okay, you just said you left the helpless ship, and now you're floating for hours over it. It says it, for several hours. Why didn't you go get the authorities? They probably have no idea he's out here. Oh, I'm going to wait here for the cops that aren't coming because nobody knows who or where you're at. Drat that guy. Let's see if we can fix the radio controls. And over here, it says, meanwhile, a few miles away, a trim-looking yacht is ready to pull out. Its owner, Ellen Page, the airman's fiancée, strides up the gangplank. This was only a few miles away. Why didn't you go over here and say, hey, there's people blowing up ships for insurance money. Call the cops. No, you float above the ship uselessly for hours. Nobody even knows that you or they are there. We have seen no indications of cops anywhere in this. No Coast Guard people out there. No overhearing. I wonder where the ship is that's blowing up other ships. No, they have no idea that they're out here. So you're floating for hours waiting for cops that are never coming. I know I harp on the stupidityness of things that in the 1940s would have probably have been sensible or in some way was acceptable back then, but you haven't called the cops. No indications of cops are looking for these guys. They're doing an insurance scam. The cops probably don't even suspect anything, so you waiting for the authorities? This isn't even a 1940s thing. This is just stupid. Okay. Drake should be very pleased to receive the news I have for him. Yes, if we find him, he hasn't been seen since his father's death. Then where are you going? He hasn't been seen. You guys have no idea where he's at. Drake 1 mentioned having radio equipment in a secured laboratory. Good. We'll try to contact him at once in the radio room. Okay. I'll let that go. A little bit of exposition. Okay, so they have him calling Drake Stevens. Can you hear me, Drake? If so, come in. And the pirates actually get the radio working. Stevens, here's the radio working. Stevens, that call must be for the son of Claude Stevens, the bird professor, who hired a ship I blew up. Say, Captain, maybe it's that feathered guy who's been after us. That's quite a leap. This guy is a lot smarter than you think he is. At the same time, Captain Klieg had just finished repairing his radio. Of course, I should have known. Get the location. I'll have these controls fixed right away. These anchors off the Devil's Rock. Here's the exact position. So they're going to fire a torpedo from where they're sitting at to... Because that's the torpedo. I thought that was the boat at first. That's the torpedo. So they're going to torpedo where he's at with the radio controls. That's a hell of a gamble. Still above the ship sports the torpedo. So they fixed the torpedo control. Yes, because you flew above them for several hours and didn't contact the authorities. Of course they're going to eventually get the radio controls fixed. I mean, what the hell were you thinking? I mean, you're smart enough to be able to counteract poisons and disable the ship, but you're not smart enough to contact the police. You didn't even go back to your Devil's Rock and get a hold of them over the radio. How do we know that you didn't do that? Because it said you flew above the ship for several hours. This is god-awfully stupid. I mean, the guys who wrote this, I've actually seen some of their storylines, and they do some intelligent things. This is the stupidest thing they could have wrote. I know I'm harping on this, but this is really stupid. He flies steadily ahead of the torpedo. What's this? Alan's ship, the torpedo, is heading right for it. Now, I don't think that they're aiming for the ship. They were trying to find his laboratory, so Alan's ship is just going to become a casualty. I love this. As fast as speed. As fast as what? As fast as what? As fast as speed? What are you, the Flash? This says absolutely nothing. As fast as speed. I'd really like some clarification on that. The airman flags to Klieg's boat. This is before you even had the jetpack. If I can bomb Klieg's boat, the torpedo will stop. That's a hell of a leap you just made right there. A terrific detonation tears the air as the airman's explosive egg strikes Klieg's ship. That's the last torpedo they'll ever want. Oh, you just killed them all. You're quite a hero. And with the ship destroyed, apparently the torpedo goes off course and hits some rocks. Simultaneously, Klieg's radio goes out of control and into the rock. You know what? No. I don't buy this. Okay, first of all, you had no way of knowing if disabling the ship would disable the torpedo. In fact, it didn't disable the torpedo. It's just that the torpedo no longer had radio controls and went off track. So, and earlier, we saw you save a ship by throwing one of your egg bombs and destroying the torpedo. Why didn't you just destroy the torpedo and then, go back over to Klieg's ship and stop everybody? You killing Klieg and all of them, who should be arrested by the authorities that you never called, should have remained alive so they could answer for their crimes. You took a hell of a gamble with that torpedo. If your gamble had not worked off, her ship would have been destroyed. You could have easily have disabled the torpedo and then disabled Klieg's ship without killing the entire crew. So I'm calling bull on the actions that you took just here, because we know you can destroy a torpedo because you already did it. So this was stupid. This was completely stupid. You took a gamble on destroying Klieg's ship when you absolutely had proof, certainty, that you can destroy a torpedo because you'd already done it once. And besides, the angle at which you're throwing that bomb looks incredibly uncomfortable for you from the air. Okay, so he goes to his fiancée. Don't be surprised at my costume, Ellen. I donned these wings to help me in my fight against crime over the sea. You surprised me. Your fiancé's wearing wings. Of course he surprised you. I had a detective working on your father's case. Every clue led to a corrupt insurance claim inspector working for Captain Klieg, who blows up useless vessels to collect the insurance. Well, now he's dead. We had the papers on the crook inspected full confession. Now that we have found Captain Klieg, then the search will end and you will come back with me. No, you blew up Klieg's ship. He's dead. Even right here it says it. It won't be necessary to hunt for Klieg. I assure you justice has met up with him. As far as going back to the city, I think those who sail the seas in need of the service of the airman in the case of justice. I'm sorry, Ellen, but this is goodbye for a while. Goodbye, Drake. I understand. No, you don't. He's a gallant lad, Miss Ellen. Sure, let's let more people know who he is. Watch for Airman in the next issue in his fight against crimes on the high seas. We have plenty of ocean heroes who could do these type of things. We don't need a guy who can fly. There are some stupid decisions made in these last couple of pages. Up until that point, I relatively found this interesting, but he didn't go after a torpedo that we know that he can destroy. He took a gamble on the ship, destroying the ship and making the torpedo go off course, which it could have easily had remained on its trajectory. I mean, there was no more thing controlling it. It should have just gone straight ahead like normal torpedoes work. And then he killed the people that should have been arrested. I mean, Klieg and the inspector could have turned on each other. You would have had an airtight, solid case, but now there is no more Klieg, and this inspector can say whatever he wants to get out of being in trouble. Okay, well, that is Airman. It started off relatively grounded and then got really stupid real quick. Well, I hope you liked this video. I hope you enjoy what I'm doing on this channel. If you have any requests on characters that you may have only heard about and don't know very much, you can always send me in a request. I love to fulfill requests. If I'm ever feeling uninspired, a request is always a good way to just get those creative juices going. So, I think I have a few requests that I can go back to. I need to make another list. But, I am back. Like I said, took a bit of a hiatus. But I hope you enjoyed this video. And until the next time, I'll be seeing you.